So it's all for play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
I muted? How was I muted? I don't know. How was I muted? I had a brilliant monologue there.
I can hear you now.
You can hear me now. Everyone else can hear me now. I have no idea how that was muted.
They're all saying no sound.
Yeah, no sound. All picture, no sound. Sure, that's fucking 90% of the way with this podcast, isn't it?
That's such a bad
What
thing.
I was saying before you also rudely interrupted me by telling me there was no sound in the comments. What I was saying was it's a proper English football game, Villa versus Forest. I'm a big Forest. I've got a soft spot for Forest, I think, because they're was that the first profound thing I said? Says Darragh Grady. Yes, probably what it was today anyway. Because today has been a day of chasing my tail. But I was just saying that I've always got a soft spot for Forest and Everton because they're just two games. They kind of, I don't know why they're nostalgic games. I just always find that they're two proper English football games. Aston Villa versus Forest, Aston Villa versus Everton. They just feel like two teams full of tradition and heritage, and it's just, they're two games I kind of look forward to, but my soft spot will definitely disappear for Forest at the weekend for 90 minutes when we play them, because this is one big, huge game that that will hopefully get us firmly on the way to dining at Europe's top table in the Champions League. And, you know, you look at games that are on there tonight, you look at the Europa League, you look at the Conference Leagues, you know, teams that we will potentially draw in the next round. And Europe is very, very nice to be in, and it's even nicer to be in the Champions League. So hopefully Villa can get that far, and it starts on Saturday, really. JMTD says, I was very privileged to see the lads train today. Emery is so hands-on, ran more than the players, shouting so many orders and tactics. The guys invested in Aston Villa. We're lucky to have him, and we absolutely are lucky to have him for sure. For sure.
What a great comment to start the podcast.
Absolutely. It wasn't as good as the one I said when I was on mute, but you guys will never know how good that was. You guys will never know. Yeah. Never know. I know how good it was, and you guys trust me, right? You trust me.
Is the dog there listening to you?
No, the dog isn't there. No, dog is gone. Dog's on strike at the moment. Paddy, how are you feeling about the weekend?
I am feeling okay about the weekend. I'm very enthused after the performance last weekend. It's made me really look forward to this weekend. It's not going to be a walk in the park by any stretch of the imagination, but we all know that we've got so many cup finals ahead. The most important thing we can do this weekend is go ahead. Once we go ahead, we're not losing from winning positions. We've lost one game from a winning position this season. That has to be the most important thing we do this weekend. So we get ahead, we stay ahead, we win the game, and on to the next one. And that has to be the focus for everything we do for the next 3 months or whatever whatever it takes until we finally cemented our place at the top table, and that would be absolutely magic. But yeah, it won't be easy. Good to have the run of fixtures that we're on, but only good if we can get the result out of it.
And Paddy, you know, it was last year. Yes, it was last year. We were over at the Forest game. And we got this corresponding fixture actually in Villa Park, and you know, it was a game whereby it was in April, and Villa were, I think, you know, Villa were, I won't say they were lackluster, but it was a game whereby they needed something to happen. And if I remember rightly, Bertrand Traore got going that day, and he ended up scoring. I think he scored one, and he set one up that day, and Villa went on to win. And I remember we were absolutely bouncing afterwards, because it was after that game when we really kind of believed, or started to believe, that come here, Europe might be on here. Europe might really be on here. Yeah. And then I think what do we have? We had Spurs and we had Brighton then in the following two games. If memory doesn't serve me incorrectly, and but that was the first time I think the whole Villa Park kind of. I remember coming out, and I remember walking down towards the Aston Social, and I remember people were like going, this could be happening. Villa could be back in Europe all of a sudden after being 14th last year. So, you know, I'm a bit tingly about this game at the weekend, because it does hold good memories for me, as I said before. And, you know, like that again, win at the weekend, and the pressure is on Manchester United and Spurs to follow us at this stage, because we have the points in our hand.
Yeah, points on the board is important. Once we don't get into the realms of games in hand, that kind of worries me. But we have the points on the board. We have this run of fixtures, which I think is very important. If we can get the points on the board, coming up to the Spurs game, which is coming in like a steam train, and if we can pick up 6 points in the next two games, I said 9 points out of the 3 games before the last one, it just puts us in the box seat, heading into which is going to be a tough run of games. We got Spurs, then we got West Ham away. Regardless of how badly West Ham are doing, we haven't had the greatest of records there either. But we just got to focus on the game ahead, which is, I'm 100% sure that's what Unai Emery was doing on the training ground today, was preparing for the onslaught that's going to come from Nottingham Forest, and just basically sticking with the task in hand, knowing exactly what's ahead of you. Forest not completely out of the trouble just yet. They're 4 points off the relegation places, so they could do points on the board, and they've got the looming threat of the potential points deduction if all is to be believed. So they need to get points on the board. They need to scrap and get themselves out of that in case that does happen. I don't envisage at this end of the season they will actually do that to anybody, but who knows?
And they've been on a kind of an upturn, I suppose, since Nuno Espirito Santo has come in. I think it's 3 games won, 1 game drawn, and 3 games lost outside of cup games. That is. Oh, browser lost connection to my camera. My camera was making noises there. You guys can still hear me. This is just a fantastic. This has been an absolutely brilliant. Oh, there I am. I'm back on again. Yeah. So there we go. Yeah, my camera is making noises. So if I do drop out again, you'll know why. But since Nuno's come in, he's really kind of solidified them. And I know last year as well, when they had Steve Cooper, they went on runs, you know, during at certain parts of the season where they'd win, you know, they'd win 3 and draw 1 and lose 3, like they've gone on now. So I just don't know, but you know, obviously Nuno is a good manager. They've got some really good players, like, you know, Callum Hudson-Odoi is playing really well recently. The striker Awoniyi up top is really good. Those 2 holding midfielders, Danilo Dominguez, is really good. Their centre half, Murillo, is a centre half I would be absolutely up for snapping up if there was some way Villa could do that and get him in there and move Konsa to. I know he's left-footed and I know he's the left-sided defender, but if there's some way that you could do that to fit him in, I just really like him. I think he's really good, and like they're a nice team. You know, I didn't even mention Morgan Gibbs-White there. They've got some really nice players, so it's going to be interesting, as you said. Villa scoring first is going to be real pivotal, I think, and then the majority of home games we have between now and the end of the season, obviously I think we can score first, and I think we will score first. And I'm very confident about this weekend. But as I am in every game, but obviously cautious confidence is the aim of the day, because there's some nice players in that team, and they've gone through another goalkeeper, Paddy, because they've got Matt Sells in goals, where we spoke about the last guy, the guys they signed from Benfica, whose name I'm not even going to try and pronounce, and then they had Matt Turner as well in goals. And when we were talking about whether they were going to play that guy from Benfica, and he ended up having an absolute stormer against us the last day when they beat us. So let's hope Matt Sells has a game like he did the weekend, and not a stormer against us, because I think Villa will come, and they will come look to taking off shots at the weekend. We've been taking more shots recently, and that's something
I hope he doesn't have the game that he had at the weekend, because he had a clean sheet against West Ham. So
yeah, but
he's definitely going to be in
West
there.
West Ham were shocking.
West Ham have been shocking for a few weeks. So I think they're saving themselves for St. Patrick's Day, when Aston Villa rock up to London for that game. But you mentioned the run they're on. But despite the fact that they got a win last weekend, they lost to Newcastle, beat Bristol City on penalties, drew up Bournemouth, lost to Arsenal, drew up Bristol City, lost to Brentford, beat Blackpool in the FA Cup on a second leg as well, or a replay, I should say.
And then they beat
Man United and beat Newcastle. That was the run they were on just after Christmas. So that has got them clear of relegation for now. But they have a nasty run of games. So they've got ourselves, they got Man United, they got Liverpool, they've got Brighton before they play Luton on the 16th of March, which is going to be a huge, huge game. So they have a horrible run of game as opposed to the ones that we've headed into in the last few weeks. So fingers crossed we can get the 3 points and keep them firmly rooted at the bottom of the table and let them fight their own battle after this weekend.
Yeah, I'm still here just in case. I'm still here, Paddy. In case you're wondering, my camera keeps on disconnecting for whatever reason. So just going to try and mess around with it here and see if we can get something sorted. But yeah, Paddy, so talking about our own team, I suppose, going back to our own team, what if any changes do you think we'll see for the weekend?
I'm not sure I do see any changes at the weekend, to be honest. We got the win. Arguably, it would have been a better win if we hadn't have had Moreno's game wrongly chalked off and we had been given a penalty in the second half. So you can't really argue with the fact that we were the much better team at the weekend. Probably deserved to win the game by more than 2-1. So does he change it? Probably not, in my view.
Yeah, I'm more interested, I suppose, to see if there's anyone back, or like if there's anyone right back in contention again, and I'm not saying our right back, but if there's anybody really back in contention again, like if maybe Luca Dean, maybe. But apart from that, I don't see him changing. I certainly don't see him changing the midfield too. It's going to be Louise and McGinn in there. Bailey is an automatic starter, absolutely, and 100% should be there. Ramsey's definitely going to play because he's coming back into form. Yeah. Like it's outside of the first 11. It's they're probably going to pick themselves. Like I don't see him springing a surprise and playing a Zaniolo anywhere. Or I don't see him springing a surprise and playing a team anywhere.
A lot of merit in the fact that he played 93 minutes for Yuri Tielemans last weekend before taking him off. So while people are having their say on his fitness, he lasted 93 minutes. Whatever you make of the last 20 minutes, some people have their opinion. Some people love him. Some people hate him. He divides the fan base. For me, if a man can stand there and split the defence like that Bahas did for Ollie Watkins to score that second goal without breaking stride, without having to take a touch, isn't that what Ollie Watkins usually gets let down on his first touch? He didn't have to take one last weekend. I'd love to see many more balls like that through that channel. You don't often see the channel open that wide, in fairness. But both players from the pass to the finish was an exceptional goal. But he is probably the one that divides the fan base that is probably going to be a starter at the weekend. And for me, after playing 93 minutes, after playing a decent enough game, I'd keep him in there.
So would I. Absolutely, I would keep him in there as
Your
well.
Your facial expression didn't say that.
I was trying to stifle a yawn, Paddy. For once, I was hoping my camera would go off at that stage because I was just going to do a big hippopotamus yawn, and I was trying to stifle it there. But yeah, I'd keep him in there. But look, I've no problem having a 70-minute player there. I've no problem having somebody at 60 minutes if the tank is drained. You bring somebody on. Like that, some people say that's a negative. I don't see that as a negative at all. If you can give a right good 60, 70 minutes, we should be making substitutions at that stage anyway. I think a lot of, especially with 5 substitutions, a lot of frivolity comes whereby, I think the days of squad management from that point of view are gone. And look, Unai Emery makes them based on lots of different calculations, whether it's sports science or what it is. But like, I know a lot of fans will say, no, you should be able to play 90 minutes every game, and you should want to. I see nothing wrong with getting a good 60, good 70 minutes out of a player and then bringing them off. Because we have players that can come in there, like Diaby can come in there for tired legs. Tim can come in there for tired legs. Move McGinn forward. McGinn doesn't get tired. We know that. So I think there's options there specifically, and I think you can like. He'll probably end up playing 90 minutes again. I'm not saying that he can't, but if you do have somebody who needs to empty the tank, specifically at this end of the season, when legs are getting heavy, that's absolutely fine by me. I don't see any issue with it. The more I think about it, though, Paddy, the more I think he might actually start Luca Dean for this one. And the reason that I'm saying that is because I just think he'll probably be. I think he'll try to be a small bit more expansive against this Forest team, because I think with the likes of Dominguez and Danilo in the middle of midfield, Morgan Gibbs-White coming back a small bit, and like they do get some good work rate out of Callum Hudson, Adai and Elanga. I think they're going to stack that midfield like most teams have done when they've come to park, not so much park the bus, but Nuno was good at getting draws when he was with Wolves. I know he doesn't have the same clientele at Forest, and he's a bit more of an expansive situation, or he has to play a bit more of expansive due to the players that he has there. I think they're going to come and try and pack that midfield, and if they do that, I think we'll probably see Luca Dean, or we could see Luca Dean in there, because Alex Moreno is yellow carded at the weekend or whatever, and he did come off for Luca Dean at one stage, but I just wondered, does Unai want to get Dean back into the team? But that's probably the only position I could see there being a change in at the weekend.
Possibly. If nothing more, to give him more game minutes under the belt. They, if you remember, back in November, broke up an 8-game winning run, which it would have turned out to be, which would have been magic. I'll never forget that day because I was hungover after a family wedding. It was one of Steve Cooper's last games. They just came at us from the start. Completely different beast under Nuno. Really, really good coach, really well drilled. Completely different style of play. It'll be interesting to see how he lines up at the weekend. I still think we're going to have enough, no matter what he does, especially being at home, being the mitigating factor. But let's not count any chickens just yet, and hopefully we can get the 3 points on the board. But as you say, yeah, Moreno probably could step aside for Luca Dean, but I think it's fairly limited to the decision. And you know what? I'd love to see the case where after 60 minutes we're 3-0 up, where he can take off the likes of Ramsey, take off the likes of Moreno or Dean, whoever it is, just to bring something else in, to see Zaniolo in there, to see Young Morgan in there, Kane Kessler-Hayden, Tim Irogbunam, Morgan Rogers, obviously. So let's see what happens at the weekend. And that's, you know what, I don't want to be getting too complacent talking like that, but that would be a nice place to be, especially coming into, in 2 weeks' time, where we got to play back-to-back European fixtures with Spurs straddled in the middle of that. So it's going to be a tough March, regardless of how we look at it. So managing the game minutes, if we're getting an easy victory, which we would always hope for, would be magic.
That you referenced that game where they beat us 2-0 in November, and like it was really lopsided from our point of view. Like we had 74% of the possession. We had 3 times the amount of passes they did. Their pass accuracy was like 71% comparison to our 91%. They caught us cold in 2 instances. They only 3 shots on target. Well, then again, so did we. But yeah, it was one of those games that you know. Villa did enough on the balance of play to win it, but we just didn't, and we lost 2-0 in Forest. But at the same time, even though we had all the lines share possession, you come away from it afterwards and you go, fair play to Forest for taking their goals, because we did fanny around with the ball for a bit in that game, and I suppose we did. It was one of those ones whereby we almost... and this could be thinking about it again overly negatively or maybe overly positively, but we almost nearly trusted it was during that period of games whereby if teams slowed it down against us, we couldn't up the pace again. And I think that was this game. We were going backwards too much. We were crossing the ball a small bit too much, and we just looked like we were like, okay, we believed something was going to happen, but we didn't have it. But it didn't happen, and then we were like, well, what do we do now? And I think we've evolved slightly from there, even though we've been through a bad patch. We've gotten back into playing through the middle again, like those goals the weekend showed. And the game against Sheffield United as well showed, if we're given a chance to play through the middle, we're a really dangerous team. If we can drag your midfielders forward like we did with Palhinha and that goal that you referenced, the goal was really made. Like if you go back even a couple of more passes to that, previously there was 8 players, I think, in 13 passes. And Ollie Watkins more or less wins a ball out and goes and comes wide right, pulls a defender that way, and then Ollie Watkins runs straight past him then for the Tielemans pass, and that's what creates that massive gap in the middle, but also pulling the Pau Torres moving forward and pulling Palhinha forward as well really opens up that hole there, and the players are smart enough to do that, and it does start with Pau Torres at the back and Ollie Watkins movement up top as well. So I'm hoping to see a ton of that at the weekend. I really, really am. I know it's only one game, Paddy. I know it's only one game, but obviously we look towards Torres and we say, yeah, look, listen, Pau Torres, real success for Aston Villa this season. He's passing. I've always thought, listen, Clement Longley is absolutely grand. No problem. I've never had a problem. There's been very few games, if any, where I've turned around and said, yeah, Longley was shite today. We're okay with that partnership, I think, aren't we? But yeah, I am. I'm just wondering, you are.
You're looking at... It's a big statement to make, but I think in a couple of years' time, when we look at Pau Torres, we could be talking about him as one of the greatest players ever to play for this club if he continues on the trajectory he is, and if he can continue the work that he's doing to play the way he is. We could be talking about a real bargain paying for what we paid for the experience. If we can go and sign Clement Longley and have him in reserve at the end of this season, I think it could be a really astute signing. We have the potential to go into next season with a hugely overpopulated centre-half positions and all back on the pitch, which would be fantastic. And to be able to rotate them and go into whatever European competition, touch wood, that we're in next season, would be absolutely brilliant. But I have no problem with Longley. Absolutely no problem. I had no problem when he came. I think there's a little bit of recency bias with Longley. People watching what he did for Spurs as opposed to what he did for his previous clubs and for international level. So for me, I've absolutely no problem with it. I've enjoyed watching him playing football. When I've stood behind the goal in Villa Park watching him play, there's a lot of stuff that goes under the radar for that man. The talking is probably not as loud and as vocal as what we would have got from Tyrone Mings, but he's a leader on the pitch, 100% a leader on the pitch, as is Pau Torres, and he's also the conductor of the orchestra. So it's great to watch what Pau Torres is doing. I have one white away shirt waiting to get back over to Villa Park to get it printed with Pau on the back. And I think that's one that I'll wear for many years to come, because for me, this season has been absolutely impeccable from Pau Torres, and a joy to watch from the guy who came in against Newcastle completely raw, and the fans were losing their shit because we'd lost. Obviously, one of our greatest players available to us. Now we're looking at him going, how is Mings going to get back into this team? So long live Pau Torres, long live the ability he has to pass the ball the way he is, because it's absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, I agree. And Josie asked a question here. Fellas, do you worry about the pace and physicality of Forest front line against our back four? Back four for me is brilliant, especially on the ball, but worry about Forest pace. I think the counteraction to that is, and I know that you can never hold on to the ball 100% of the game, and counter-attack is how Forest beat us the last time, but it will be possession-based football. It will be, that's how you, like a team that has all the pace, and they can have all the pace they want up top, but if you own the ball, and you're dominant on the ball, and that team spends more, and those players spend most of their time chasing you around as opposed to chasing the ball, alleys or whatever, you know, you can mitigate that. You can mitigate pace. The power and physicality, I think, of Awani is he's getting a lot better in the Premier League. I know his goal output and stuff like that isn't huge, but you know, he's another one of these guys that is, you know, he's probably become a victim of the fact that football has gone to one up top. You know, if he was playing in a two up top, I think you'd see a way different striker.
Well, bear in mind, you're talking about a striker that scored 17 in 45 games. That's 1 in 3.
That's true.
That's a decent return at this level of the game. So, let's not belittle what he's done. You know,
no, and I wasn't, but I was just saying that, like, a lot of people will, you know, might have expected more from him, but you know, he's 6 goals got this year already. You know, but as I say, if he was playing up top in the 2, I think people would be raving about him, because he just has that he's strong, he's good in the ball, he's somebody we definitely need to keep an eye on for sure.
And he's not far off the ratio that Ollie Watkins has. Ollie Watkins is 61 and 153, so his is more than 1 in 3. So yeah, obviously something we need to be careful of. Yes, I agree. Some decent pace there with Hudson-Odoi and Alanga. We've obviously got to be prepared for it. You could be right with the more I think about it, you could be right with a Luca Dean performance this weekend, just to have that little bit more defensive capabilities against those pacey wingers might be the way to go. But yeah, that's probably the only change that I would consider at this stage. Scott
Taggart asked, does Mings have a Villa future? I can't wait to see Treat back next year, Scott. That's all I'll say. Can't wait to see it.
Oh, can you imagine?
Can't wait to see him in the middle of a back three with Konza right side of him, Pau Torres the left side of him. And then people ask, where's Diego Carlos? Well, somebody has to be on the bench, like, but yeah, or maybe somebody has to be in Saudi. I said, I'm being facetious, and I say that in jest, but I remember at the start of the season, I can't remember what podcast I was on, but somebody asked me who would be sold, if any Villa player would be sold over the next 12 months, who would it be? And I said, I have just always seen Diego Carlos playing in the Saudi league. I don't know what it is. But anyway, we'll see if that one comes true. But yes, Tyrone Mings does have a future for sure. For sure. Anything else, Paddy, before we...
No, all good. I was supposed to be prepared to talk to you about a blue card, but I'm far too relaxed this evening to be giving out about.
I forgot to mention about a blue card.
Well, look, will we get it out of the way?
What? I've nothing to say in the matter.
Countdown 60 seconds. Right.
Okay. Go.
If you want a blue card in your life, you will lose Paddy talking about football in your life, because we will talk about 10 minutes of people rolling around on the ground while somebody is off sitting in a sin bin at the side of the pitch, while the PGMOL can't do what they're currently paid to do. Why in God's green earth would you want them to implement another card when they can't fucking implement what they have with everything they have at their disposal? They can't do it. So I didn't even last a minute. That's enough. Fuck your blue card.
We'll
stick it up your arse.
Will someone chop that bit up of Paddy saying he didn't even last a minute there? That could come in handy. Um, blue card, yeah. For me, I think it's nonsense. As I say, it's all you need to do. Look, if the blue card is coming in for abusing referees, all you need to do is mic referees up, have the audio there, because there's going to be he said, she said type of thing here as well, and it's just going to be a nonsense, and things are going to be overturned. It's not going to work, I don't think. Also, the referee thing or the goalkeeper thing, whereby you can choose to take him off and take off an outfield player and make a full-time substitution and then sub on another player. Come here.
Nonsense.
Talk about overcomplicating it for
Absolute
me.
fucking nonsense.
Let's
Get everything else right first before we start worrying about these kind of things.
Mic up the referees and retrospectively ban people for abusing them. That's the best way to do it, because, and I know people would say, but you don't get the in-game benefit of it and stuff like that, but it's just have a harsher ban and have it retrospective if you want to get rid of the abuse of the referees. And that's probably the best way for me to do it. That's the best way to do it, because it'll become too ambiguous otherwise. And the referee and the goalkeeper thing.
Love you too, Richard.
When Richard. Right. I think we're going to leave it at that. I have to go back in and make sure that the leak that was happening in my house isn't still leaking, because my amateur plumbing skills were put to the test this evening, and I think I've got it sorted. So we're going to leave it at that. We will be back with a team sheet tantrum, and we will be back with a post-match on Saturday as well. So I hope you all join us for that. And in the meantime, everybody, stay safe, stay healthy, and all that's left to say is up the Villa.
Up the Villa.